Every year for New Year's, Papa Nashies makes a big ol' ham, and every year with the leftovers, Nashies tries to outdo herself with a new type of macaroni and cheese. Hello and welcome to today's edition of Noshing with Nashies, where we're going to be making Pesto Mac and Cheese. I went ahead and cut up my ingredients so I could give you some size estimates here because I don't usually measure when I make my mac and cheese. We're going to start out with about 8 cups of cheese, shredded cheese. I have Monterey Jack and sharp cheddar here. Reserve about 2 cups for the top of the macaroni and cheese. Got about a cup of sun-dried tomatoes chopped up, about 1.5 cups of onion. I have about 2 cups of ham, and hanging out back there, I've got about 1 cup of celery. We're going to be using about 1 cup of breadcrumbs to go on the top, about a teaspoon of black pepper. I've got 2 of these little things of Velveeta. That makes about 1 cup of Velveeta. That helps out our sauce. I'm going to be using about a teaspoon of Italian herb and probably about 1/2 cup of basil pesto. The Kirkland is excellent. We're going to be using some garlic powder. Obviously, you can use fresh if you want on any of this or dried. Whatever you have is just fine. We are going to be using some fancy pasta today. We're going to be using sfolini, and for this kind of dish, you want to use a heartier pasta. It doesn't have to be expensive, doesn't have to be fancy, but you want a heartier pasta since we're going to be baking it. That's what it looks like dried. That's what it looks like when it is cooked, because I have pre-cooked mine. And then we're going to need some milk and some oil in our Dutch oven, and I'm going to get us started over on the stove. See you in a minute. All right, here I have my Dutch oven preheated over medium heat, which is 5 on my stove. With 2 tablespoons of avocado oil, I pre-cooked my pasta in there. I undercooked my pasta by about 2 minutes. And here we're coming in with our onion and our celery and our ham and our sun-dried tomatoes. And we are just going to cook these very quickly until the onion becomes translucent. We want that flavor to get all nice and good. And like I said, if you don't have fresh onion, use dehydrated. If you have fresh garlic, use that. If you use garlic, that's fine. Garlic powder's just fine. Any kind of meat you want to use, really explore the flavors here. But I will let you watch this in fast motion, and then we will build our sauce. All right, that took us about 7 minutes or so to do that. Everybody's nice and translucent. I have preheated my oven to 375 degrees while I was doing this, and I have also greased up a 13x9 pan with some nonstick spray. I am going to come in with this Italian herb seasoning, about a teaspoon or so, more or less, depending on what you like. You can use oregano and basil if that's all you got, and a little bit of garlic. That's perfectly fine. Because our pesto is going to give us that burst of basil flavor. I'm going to come in with about 1/2 teaspoon to a teaspoon of garlic powder, which I need more of. Gotta go to the store. And then about a teaspoon of black pepper, more or less, depending on what you like. Some pepper flakes would also be wonderful in this. And with our milk, you can use heavy cream, you can use half and half, you can use regular milk, anything. But before we go in and we add the milk, make sure you have cut back the eye of your stove to about 2, so low. We don't want this super hot anymore. We don't want it at that medium heat because we don't want anything to curdle. And what helps with that cheese sauce so it doesn't break in this macaroni and cheese is the Velveeta. You can also use something like an Alfredo sauce would be great. That just helps out for people that struggle with making a bechamel or a cheese sauce. This will give it a lovely creamy texture. So this is about a cup of Velveeta and about a cup of milk that we are throwing in there. So I'm going to let this melt down for just a minute until the Velveeta is melted, and then we will add in our cheese and our pesto. That just took a couple of minutes there to get that nice and melted. Again, we're on that low heat. We're going to come in, I've got about 3/4 of a cup of my pesto here. And if you like yours a bit creamier, you can absolutely add more of your milk, your half and half, whatever it is that you're using for this. And you can eat this off the stove top. It is not required that you have to bake it in the oven. It will be very good. So we're going to mix in that pesto. And now we're going to come in with about 6 cups of cheese that's been shredded. Again, we use about 8 cups of cheese, and we're reserving about 2 cups for the top because we want that nice bubbly cheese top of our macaroni and cheese. And bagged cheese works just fine. And we are just going to stir this in. It's kind of like green eggs and ham because the pesto makes it a little bit green. So if you ever wanted to delight anyone who is a fan of that book, you can do green eggs and ham using pesto. It's fantastic. And you see how that melts in without breaking? That's why we use that Velveeta. It's just kind of an easy step. For those that struggle with that, because even I, after years in the kitchen, break my sauce sometimes. Okay, we're going to come in with our noodles now. And we're just going to stir them in real quick. And this was the entire box because I'm doing a big serving of this. And again, like I said, a nice hearty noodle for this. And this is where, after you stir your noodles, you can check and see, is it creamy enough for you? Do you want to add a little bit more liquid before we transfer it? Or is it good according to you? You can also taste a little bit of it to see if it needs any seasoning to bring it up to your flavor level. Oh, that's beautiful. This noodle holds on to a lot of sauce, which is why it's so fantastic. All right, I've got everybody mixed together here. I'm going to transfer you over, and we're going to put it into our baking dish. All right, I've got my baking dish here all nice and greased up. We're going to come in, and we are going to dump out this macaroni and cheese. And this freezes really well, too. You just want to make sure to take it out and defrost it before baking it. So this is definitely one of those you can plan ahead kind of meals. It's trying to escape on me. Make sure to scrape all that goodness out. And then we're just going to even out the top here. Make sure all of our corners are filled. And again, whatever pasta shape you want to use on this is wonderful. Just make sure it's a slightly heartier pasta. Now we're going to come in with a little bit of breadcrumb, and we're just going to top it off like so. I have reserved 2 cups of cheese that I have put back in the refrigerator because we are going to bake this at 375 degrees covered with aluminum foil for about 30 minutes. And then at the end of that, pull it out, take off the aluminum foil, top it with cheese, and bake it for another 10 to 15 minutes, depending on how brown the top gets and how melty the cheese gets. All right, so there's our mac and cheese. I'm going to go ahead and cover this up, stick it in the oven, and I will see you in just a bit. Hot and bubbly. We have topped it with the cheese, so now I'm going to stick it back in that 375-degree oven, uncovered for 10 to 15 minutes until it's nice and bubbly, and then we will serve it up. See you then. Listen to that sizzle. Oh, it's bubbling good. And here we have our finished basil macaroni and cheese. It is ooey, it is gooey, it is oh so good. It comes out of the pan nice and clean. I do recommend trying this for yourself. It is a twist on a classic. Thank you so much for joining me for today's edition of Noshing with Nashies. Remember, if you come to a fork in the road, pick it up and have a nosh with Nashies. Please like, comment, share, and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye!